Hello viewers, welcome to this tutorial. Now in the previous one, this was the code we actually wrote, okay, using the username and password and using conditional statements within functions, okay. So these are conditional statements, so you can watch the previous tutorial to understand this clearer. But today we're dealing with the return keyword, or let me say the return property. All right, now in this code, if you check this out, whether or not the user passes the first security checkpoint or not, he still has access to the second one. So let's run the code to see what happens. If I enter the right username and I enter the right password, it takes me to the second security checkpoint and says you have access. But whether or not I enter the wrong one, just look, I enter the wrong name, I enter the wrong password, it says you are the wrong person, but still gives me access to the third security checkpoint. Now you wouldn't like to declare or to write an application this way. So what happens is there is no restriction in our global code. Now bear in mind, a function works local. A function works like the nuclear family, okay, and any code outside the function works like the global, or let me say the extended family. So in the global code, these are global codes, okay, and these are local codes because they are within the function. So it's not only a function that works locally, there are other stuff, but we're dealing with function today. So a function works local, okay, and any other thing outside the function, which is not just any other thing, works locally, it works globally. All right, so the function cannot release its values to us except we want to except the function passes over the values. All right, so that's why we are not really having a kind of authentication here before we go to the second and third security checkpoint. So what we want to do is use the return keyword or the return property, which allows us to receive values from a function. So let's just jump to understand what it actually does. If I have define calculation, all right, and I say value or result is equals 2 times 3, all right, and I have a calculation. So I've declared a function and I've called a function. So if I run this code, it gives no output because I'm not printing anything. So I can print within the function and say print result. So the print statement is actually what displays anything I need. So if I say print result, then I need to actually print something when the function is called, okay. So check it out, 6. But there is some point in programming where you actually do not want to print within your function. Now this is just a basic code we're trying to write, but some points in your code you actually do not want to print within your function, especially when we get to dealing with arguments, okay. Now we just want to pass values to the function for the function to perform particular tasks, and when the function is done, we pass the values within the function to our outside code for the function to do something with them, or for the code to do something with the value it passes. So you will not always need to print within your function. So when it gets to that point, you would like to declare or use the return keyword. So let's see what happens if I try to print outside. So print. Now you can actually print, put a function within your print statement. So the print statement simply reveals something, okay, it displays to the user. So if I print my function and the function is actually returning nothing, then it will be void. They will tell me none. Okay, so none does not mean that the function does not exist. None does not mean the function is not doing anything. None simply means that after the function performs a task, it is not returning any value. I'm not receiving anything from the nuclear family, okay. I'm not receiving anything from the local family. So the code is in the global world and the function is in the local world. So the function has to release a value to the global code, okay, the global world, okay. The local code has to return the value to the global code and say use this value for your operation. All right, so that's where we need the return result. All right, so any value we put after the return will actually be released anywhere the function is called. So I've called the function within the print statement, okay. So after this calculation, the function on its own will give out the value called result, and the value called result is 2 times 3, which is 6. So I'll print 6, unlike what we printed none. So if I print this code, we have 6. So if I change the values or to any value I want, if we print, we have that value, stop and rewind. So we have that value here, 18, okay. So any value I try to print, I just get the value here. So this is how it actually works. And you can also directly print it and say return 2 times 9. You can directly send the value, so you don't necessarily need to return the variable. You can actually return 2 times 9, okay. So return 2 times 9, it becomes 18, and you can actually return some other things like true. So anywhere the function is called, if it is being displayed, it will return true. Okay, so does it only mean that let me see, okay, does it only mean that you can return values in the print statement? No, actually we might not really need even to return values in a print statement when it comes to the real world applications. Okay, but what happens is we might have to store the value the function returns within a variable outside the code, because if we have the value the function returns in an outside code, then we are able to use that variable and manipulate in any other thing we want to do. So I have a variable called value. Okay, okay, let's say received value equals the name of the function. So we are learning more things about what the function can do. So we've learned about conditional statement within the function. We are now learning the return value. So the return keyword is able to pass values from a function to anywhere outside the global code or anywhere outside the code, even within the function itself, wherever the function is called. Okay, so I've assigned calculation as a function to be the value of a variable called receive value. So if the function is not returning anything, okay, and I run the code, okay, let me print receive value. Okay, if the function is not returning anything and I run the code, it says none. But if the function returns something and I run the code, they give me the value. Okay, so now we have to need the return. The return is so great of what the actually I see it with as the reason the function exists, because after your calculation you would definitely want to return some values to the outside code. Okay, so this is basically of what a return could actually do. So we're going to use this technique to solve the previous problem we saw in the code, okay, in the previous code, and what I displayed earlier within this code. So we'll be able to give restrictions within the first security checkpoint, the second, and the third. So in a nutshell, what happens is anything at all that you have within your function does not return any value to the outside code or to the global code. So the local code called a function has to return a value to whosoever is receiving the value, whether receiving it in a print statement or whether receiving it in a variable, which the variable is more reliable. Okay, then after we use the value for any other thing we want to do. So this is just a piece of tutorial for this, and also in the next tutorial we're going to understand how to use this return in our daily code and every other thing we want to do. Okay, so thanks for viewing. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the bell for more updates as well, and like the videos if they're informative for you. Thank you for viewing.